How did Sony get to this? From this. The story starts a year after World War II, when two ex-missile engineers Masaru Ibuka and Akio Morita left the military to found the Tokyo Telecommunications Engineering Corporation, or Totoku for short. Things didn't start off so great, with their first ever product being an electric rice cooker which didn't sell too well, but the company eventually struck something good when they decided to start fixing radios. They stayed on a roll with the Type G, the first tape recorder ever sold in Japan, and its success led to new models being made. In the early 50s, Ibuka made a vital flight all the way to the United States, where he licensed the game-breaking piece of technology, the transistor. At the same time, the company was renamed to Sony, derived from the Latin word for sound. The transistor enabled the creation of their first hit product, the TR-55 radio. People loved it, and so Sony made smaller and smaller varieties. One of them, the TR-63, believe it or not, was the first ever item to be called pocket-sized, even though Sony salesmen had to wear large pockets to show it. They then moved on to TVs, creating the world's first transistorised television, a small black and white portable TV that ran on very big batteries. Sony started to gain a lot of success. They created even more recorders and even more TVs. They produced calculators, which were computers before computers. Audio tape recorders led to videotape recorders, and black and white TVs were replaced by Sony's color Trinitrons. These TVs were twice as bright as Sony's competitors, leading to over 100 million in sales before the design's patent expired in 1996. In the 60s, cassettes became the norm and Sony released the TC100. It may remind you of something they made later. Its brother, the TC50, was the smallest cassette tape recorder at the time and was used by astronauts on Apollo 10. Cassettes also came to use in the U-matic videotape, the first video cassette tape. Then, Sony's Portapack let people film their own videotapes. At the same time, Sony's radios kept improving with digital clock and boombox models. In 1975, they introduced Betamax, a high-quality video cassette made for consumers. And I'll let this man tell you all about it.
Because Sony's revolutionary Betamax deck, which hooks up to any TV set, can actually videotape something off one channel while you're watching another channel. With Sony's Betamax, you won't miss a thing.
A triple play! You've just seen a triple play!
Betamax fought a long hard battle against VHS, and despite its superior picture quality, the cheaper price of VHS meant Betamax failed and it was eventually abandoned. Sony kept innovating their products, making high quality TVs and mini music players shaped like toy cars. This would lead to one of their most iconic products of all time, the Pressman, a hit where journalists could record audio and play it back. They then got rid of the record feature and made the Walkman. This revolutionary device was created because Morita wanted to listen to opera music on long distance flights, so he asked for a music player small enough to fit in his pocket. The result was one of Sony's most successful products ever. They also innovated in storage, creating the 3.5-inch floppy disk. The company also improved on the cameras, releasing the first ever still video camera, the Mavica, which took photos like these. The Walkman also updated, and the Watchman, a variant with an inbuilt TV, was also produced. Then, Sony invented the CD with help from Dutch company Philips, and while the Betamax wasn't a success, the CD definitely was.
Sony introduces the only cassette player as small as a cassette case. The incredible sounding Super Walkman.
Enter Sony's $25,000 sweepstakes. Look for this display at your Sony dealer.
Now back to the video with the first ever camcorder, the Betacam. This device revolutionized the way we capture memories. Around the same time, Sony started developing real computers, starting with the 8-bit SMC-70 with 64 kilobytes of RAM and a monochrome display. They then made another one with many small improvements like added colors. Sony also worked with Microsoft on a set of home computers known as Hitbit. Before Nintendo, these were the go-to devices to play Japanese games. Sony CDs then came to use in the Walkman, or should I say Discman, the world's first portable CD player. Sony didn't stop with these Walkman updates, creating new versions annually. Their TVs also kept updating with a huge upgrade in the Jumbotron. Yep, Sony invented the Jumbotron, and if it wasn't for them, Times Square would be very different today. The company then went on a string of releases, with important items like the News PC series and the Handycam, to weird ones like a solar-powered Walkman and a CD boombox. They also decided to make a VHS player after Betamax failed. Sony then started expanding, first buying CBS Records, the world's largest record company at the time, signing stars like Michael Jackson and Beyoncé. to then purchasing Columbia Pictures a year later, leading them to make film series like Spider-Man and James Bond. Later, Sony released their first tablet, the Palm Top, which came out 20 years before the iPad, in addition to an ebook player years before the Kindle and an intelligent dialer years before modern smartphones. Soon after, they updated the Trinitron to HD and developed the PlayStation. Well, not the PlayStation you and I know, the Nintendo PlayStation. Designed as an upgrade to the SNES that could play CDs, it was eventually cancelled after the two companies fought over profits. A year later, they were fascinated by making things small, creating the mini disc and tiny NT cassettes. They then created the Magic Link, a huge upgrade from the Palm Top, and I'll let Steve Wozniak tell you all about it.
This is my solution, the Magic Link. It handles all my email and lets me play some games and sit in bed with it.
Finally, the real PlayStation arrived, with a massive amount of classics from Crash Bandicoot to Tomb Raider. Its first controller had the iconic 4 shapes but no analog sticks. They appeared 3 years later in the dual analog, which was eventually replaced by the iconic DualShock. The Glastron was Sony's first attempt at VR, with a 52-inch virtual display that could transport you anywhere. Through games like MechWarrior, players could pilot gigantic machines whilst fighting in virtual battles. Next, Sony released the Cybershot, a major improvement to their cameras, being the first ever digital still camera. Their computers were next advanced with the introduction of the Vaio series, released in the early 2000s. The Vaio logo itself is split into two, with half of it being an analog signal and the other half digital binary. They also released their first laptops through Vaio with stylish, sleek designs. The company then released the first ever flat-screen TV, the 36-inch. Then, Sony finally made their entry into the mobile market with their CMD cell phones. These phones had very simple features, such as single color screens and no apps. Now time for another ad break.
トゥスポケットでゲームが広がるポケットステーション。
The great crystalline dragon, ruler over the plane of sky, deposited life onto a lifeless planet, and with one swipe of her mighty claws, laid claim to the promise of a new world.
Now back to the video with Sony's robotic companion, Aibo. This $2,500 toy could interact with its environment and even play football. After this, Sony decided to improve on the floppy disk by creating the first ever memory stick, which has been used in countless devices ever since. They then made the personal digital assistant Clea, a smartphone before smartphones. Shortly after, the PlayStation got slimmer with the redesigned PS1, a trend that they would continue on all their consoles. We then got the upgrade, the best-selling console of all time, the PS2.
That's the last time I ever touch any stupid precursor.
It sold over 155 million units, improving on the PS1's graphics and power, and was the first console that could use DVDs. With games like San Andreas and God of War, no wonder it sold so well. After a fire led to Ericsson needing a new partner, they joined forces with Sony, forming Sony Ericsson, producing some of the best phones of the 2000s. The P800 was one of the first phones they released, with a 300-pixel touchscreen display running Symbian OS. Then with the T68i they showed off their first color screen phone, which came with tri-band connectivity. Next, Sony created their TV division, which produced some of the most popular series of all time, from Jeopardy to Breaking Bad. While this was happening, Vaos kept getting better, and in 2002 they released the smallest laptop ever at 6 inches. This decade was the beginning of high-definition everything, and Sony's Blu-ray helped make it possible by having 5 times more storage than DVDs. They also released the PSX, a half TV, half console. They didn't stop making robots either, with the bipedal Curio being a huge release. Then, years before Amazon's Kindle, Sony released the Libre, the first ever ebook reader. The device had a 6-inch ink display and could hold up to 80 books. The PS2 got a special add-on, the iToy, which let you control games by moving.
That's right, just move your arms, your head, or any part of your body.
The console got a slimmer model too. Then Sony shrunk it down even more, giving us the PSP. It packed a lot of power into a portable console, with tiny UMD discs allowing it to run high quality games and movies. In 2004, after a long history of making CRTs like the Trinitron, Sony stopped, concentrating on high-quality LCDs like the Bravia instead. Meanwhile, they never stopped making the Walkman, with each music player more interesting than the last. Their mobile phones started incorporating Walkman tech too, in addition to high-quality Cybershot cameras. This camera technology got a major upgrade with the release of the Alpha series, which continues to be very popular today. In 2006, the PlayStation 3 finally arrived. This time, in addition to DVDs, it gained the ability to play high-quality Blu-rays. They also introduced the PlayStation Network, allowing you to play games online with friends, bringing gaming to new heights. Sony's Values kept coming, and in all new forms, from giant all-in-ones to small handhelds. Some were designed for Sony's new TVs, including the first ever OLED, the ultra-thin Zell-1. Sony's robots also took unique forms, with Roly the Robo Speaker. Then, the iToy got a major upgrade with the PlayStation Move, released alongside the PS3 Slim, giving players improved motion control. As new Sony Ericssons came out with better features such as 5-megapixel cameras and modern UIs, Sony decided to release the Xperia, a high-res smartphone to compete with the likes of HTC and Apple. This X series of products didn't stop there, with a glass phone, the X5, coming out shortly after. Sony's readers also got an upgrade with modern screens. Around the same time, the success of Avatar led to 3D technology becoming huge, causing Sony to make several 3D devices. Mobile gaming was also gaining hype, so Sony developed the Xperia Play, a half phone, half PlayStation. They didn't give up on classic handhelds either, releasing the PS Vita in the same year. It came with an OLED touchscreen, cameras, and PSN capability. Their touchscreen products didn't stop there, with their first modern tablets, the Tablet S&P, appearing shortly after. They also released a touchscreen smartwatch, years before the Apple Watch. The PS3 got another update with the even thinner super slim model. They also introduced the PlayStation TV, a micro console that ran Vita games. Soon after the major upgrade to both, the PS4 was released. This 8th gen console came with more power and features than before, such as 4K media playback, the ability to stream games and share them with friends remotely, and an updated DualShock controller with a touchpad. By this time, Sony had split with Ericsson, and their mobile division started producing premium Android phones and tablets. Models such as the Z series came with full HD and even waterproof touchscreens. Then, later editions came with features like 4K recording and 20-megapixel cameras. Their tablets also tagged along with some of the same features. Sony loved releasing phones, with multiple flagships coming out yearly. The most premium of which, the Z5, introduced the fingerprint sensor and was the first ever phone with a 4K screen. Remember the Glastron? Here's its grandson, Sony's VR, a gigantic improvement that introduced high-quality virtual reality experiences. The PS4 also improved with a thinner slim model and the 4K Game Ready Pro. Sony's Z series were then replaced by the new X series. Each edition got slightly better, with huge upgrades coming in the XZ2 with wireless charging and the XZ3 with an amazing OLED display. Sony also made a huge impact in the audio industry with their user-friendly but very unfriendly to pronounce headphones. The original PlayStation then made a comeback, returning with 20 throwback games from Tekken 3 to Metal Gear Solid. Sony's Aibo also made a return. For $3,000 it can now recognize 100 faces, respond to over 50 voice commands and learn new tricks. Later, Sony brought the Master Series, introducing 8K quality to Sony's televisions. Then, 40 years after its introduction, the iconic Walkman finally returned. With a modern twist, it's now an Android. Sony made major moves with other Androids, introducing a triple camera system to the Xperia 1, whilst also releasing many compact and mid-range models. However, their flagships got the latest features, with their second model coming with 5G. The PlayStation 5 arrived with huge upgrades over the PS4, from 120fps, 8K max resolution, ray tracing and a super fast SSD to get gaming quickly. The DualShock also evolved into the DualSense, with adaptive triggers and haptic feedback to let you feel the game you were playing. Sony also kept improving their audio products, leading to their popular 4th generation headphones and the production of multiple earphones. Another division Sony excels in is cameras. In 2020, they took advantage of this and released the Xperia Pro. Their flagship model, the Xperia 1 III, got another huge update, with a 120Hz refresh rate on its beautiful 4K OLED display. The recent hype over virtual reality caused Sony to upgrade their VR models with high-resolution 4K HDR screens as expected. A product we never expected, however, was the Xperia. Sony announced that they had partnered with Honda to produce a series of electric cars for 2026. But will Sony's future be in cars? What's next for Sony? Well, they just announced a new portable PlayStation, codenamed Project Q. Unlike a PSP, it doesn't come with its own games, and instead of this, it will use Remote Play to let users stream games through their PS5. We should also expect to see some upgrades to the PS5 itself, with better graphics, power, and perhaps even some new features. But what do you think? What's next for Sony? Tell me in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please check out these other ones.